Welcome to Journey of the Art, where we discuss the artist, unravel the art, and explore the road between. Hi, and welcome to Journey of the Art. In this episode, I have the honor of chatting with Nadia Ragbar about her novel, The Pugilist and the Sailor. The novel tells the story of two conjoined twins, Bruce and Dougie, one an ambitious boxer and the other a bookkeeper. As the brothers pursue their individual desires, a love interest, and a boxing championship, they are compelled to consider the true meaning of belonging, independence, and their own place in the world. Nadia's short fiction has appeared in Broken Pencil and This Magazine, among other outlets. Her flash fiction appeared in The Unpublished City, an anthology curated by Dion Brand, which was shortlisted for the 2018 Toronto Book Award. The Pugilist and the Sailor is her first novel. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Nadia.
Thank you for having me, Lila.
You are very welcome. Before we get started, here's a reminder to look up Journey of the Art wherever you get your podcasts. So check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms to listen on the go, follow the show, and leave a comment. This really helps to boost our visibility so more folks like you can discover and join the community. I'd also love to connect with you on Instagram, so please follow the show at Journey of the Art Pod. Today, I have another ask of you. If you love the show, please don't keep it to yourself. Tell someone else about Journey of the Art. All right, Nadia, let's get started.
Sure.
I want to ask you something that is not about the book. What's one thing that makes you happy these days?
One thing that makes me happy is, I would say, my son, and he's 7, and he's just really goofy, and so he's just making me laugh all the time. Yeah, in the midst of all of the infuriating things. Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
I can't help. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. Children bring so much joy sometimes. Sometimes. My kids shouldn't hear that, but sometimes.
Usually, like after coffee is the best time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like when you're fully awake.
Yeah, and you can really just appreciate.
Can you start us off by telling us a little bit about the book?
Okay, so this novel is, like you said, it's about conjoined twins who are, I think they're about 34 in the book. They're amateur boxers. And so really what the book is about Bruce having to make a decision. And so it's the story of how you balance being an individual and how you decide what you want for your life, and how we each sort of strive for autonomy. It's like what we're all looking for in our life, but how we balance that with the community that we're in. And so I sort of used the premise of conjoined twins to lean on it a little bit, to kind of like take a slightly absurd premise, like the fact that they're boxers, and kind of lean into this idea of balancing the individual and the community. And so really it's about Bruce learning how to find his voice. And he's gone along with boxing his whole life, and his brother is very charming and sort of in that has kind of dominated their dynamic.
Right.
And so it is kind of about family dynamics. And yeah, the idea of like, once you grow up in a family culture, how do you decide as an adult what is going to be part of your life going forward?
Right.
And how do you make a decision when a lot of other people are relying on you? So, making them conjoined, it was like they're physically relying on one another. So it kind of let me lean into that a little bit.
Right. I think it's a very interesting premise, and I'm going to ask about those two characters because they are, I think, very human. And that's one of the things that I love about it. It's no one twin is the bad one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're in a world where we're always looking for, okay, who's the bad one, who's the good one. They're just human. And so I am going to ask about that later, but I'll save that for later. um I do want to get us started though at the end of the book, and with the last line. Bruce readied himself to turn and go around a second time. And I think you know where this question is going. But you mentioned in an interview that you knew what the last line should be. And so I wanted to ask, what was it about this line that gripped you from the beginning?
I think so. Part of Bruce, he is sort of obsessed with a sailor in the story, and the character of M is based on a real sailor, Bernard Moitessier, who was in a race in 1968, I think it was, and to sail around the world. Um, and Moitessier was almost about to win the race, and he decided to forego the race. And he just kept sailing around the world like almost a second time. So he got around the world 1.5 times. And so Bruce is obsessed with this story as kind of, he sees him as almost a mentor, and this idea of being an individual and having no one else to rely on. And um, so from the moment I learned that story, I had this idea of like turning around and going a second time, like Montessier's journey, and just what that took. Like he turned his back on his family. That he was from France and he had a wife, and he essentially was just like, I'm gonna stay here on this boat in the ocean. And so it was just, as soon as there's something like, I was kind of romanticizing this idea in my mind, like when I first learned this story of like that kind of drive, and just, I don't know, just there is this romantic kind of notion to going your own way. But then the reality of that, like, I immediately have to think about his family, who is waiting for him. And so as soon as I learned of that movement where he turned and he kept going around, I sort of had the structure of what Bruce was going to go through. And that ultimately for me, that line is about having made the decision that he's made in the book, having to make that just be the right decision, and having to kind of start his life or continue his life, but from another vantage point, and a slightly more like with a bit more agency and a little bit more empowerment, even if there is regret as part of that.
Right. And that leads me to ask, what made you decide to choose boxing as the thing that Dougie is particular about? How did you land on boxing?
Well, the whole thing honestly was the project started off as a thesis project. I was in a master's program, and up to that point, I had only written flash fiction and like very shorter stories. But I knew that I wanted to take the opportunity to try to write something longer, and I was kind of racked with a lot of doubt that I didn't know my voice and I didn't know what to write about, and I didn't know that I had anything to say, but I knew I didn't want to waste this opportunity that I had. And so I was sort of floundering for a couple of weeks, and then I decided that I would just write a list of things that I loved. And I figured the things that I loved were things I didn't doubt. I had like faith in these things. And so I just made this very long list. And so it included like books, and like the story about Montessier. I had seen a documentary sort of around the same time. And different memories came to me from childhood and people and things. And so really I was just collecting data from my life of things that I just enjoyed. And so I had this sort of memory of when I was very young of my uncles coming over to watch boxing with my dad. And I'm not particularly a boxing fan, but there was just something about it that there's something about the camaraderie of it and like the fun of it that I would see in them having, that I put it on my list. And so it was kind of just that. It was just this element of fun. But then once I started writing, it really became a touchstone for their physicality. Um, it became like something really grounded and like in the body that I found very useful to sort of write with. And it just made the contrast between the brothers. Like I really was trying to give them enough difference, but like you said earlier, not make one the villain and one like
Yeah.
the victim. So boxing it was kind of just it sort of pulls it out of the air, but it did work, so I just stuck with it.
I want to circle back to what you said about making this list of things that you love.
Mhm.
How did you know to do that?
I think because I was digging for inspiration when I was just feeling very stuck, and it's the things that usually inspire me are other books, movies, like other pieces of art. And so I was like, I'm inspired by things that I love to see. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to mine my life for things where I can sort of feel that.
I
Mhm.
think my curiosity is, how did you know that would unlock something? How did you know that making that list would unlock? Is that a process that you usually go through?
I had actually never done it, but I am a compulsive list maker. And so making a list was the thing that feels natural. But I was kind of so like stuck and panicking about a deadline, all the sort of academic things.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't know, it just kind of came to me. It was just like a list, but instead of being of, all the things I had to do or all the things I was worried about, I was just kind of looking for something that would light some of that inspiration. But it was honestly just a fluke. Like it wasn't something I had really designed as an exercise, but it is something I'm going to use going forward.
Okay, and I keep asking about this because when I'd seen a recent interview where you talked about this, I said to myself, oh, that actually could work for me. And so I was wondering if this was something that you had been doing over and over again. I think it's so interesting that it just came to you and it worked out for you.
Yeah.
And now it's going to work for someone like me because I'm going to try that.
Yeah, you should. And I think that actually, like having now have with the complete project, I think it actually affected the tone of the work because I do find the book to be quite optimistic and lighthearted. And I love my characters a lot. And I loved them when I was writing, and they became very present to me. And so I think it was starting from this place, it kind of set the tone for the type of book that would emerge from that type of a list. Yeah.
Right. And one of the things I love about the book is how fitting it is, especially for the times that we're in. And I think you touched on this a while earlier, where we find ourselves in a place where there's so much division and so much, fighting.
Mhm.
But the characters that we're presented with, Bruce and Dougie, are a kind of symbol where, we're all different, yet we're so critically connected.
Mhm.
And you just talked about it, but I want to give you an opportunity to share more about how aware you were of this as you were writing.
Like in terms of writing something that was like an antidote, is that what, or
Um, hmm, Maybe not an antidote, but I wonder, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Because I'm wondering if, as you were writing this, you were exploring what could work as an antidote for us in the world,
Mhm.
or maybe just working through these questions in your mind as you were developing the characters.
Yeah, I think I my mindset when I was writing, like I said it in a fictionalized version of Toronto. It's Toronto, but slanted slightly, it's slightly askew. And so my intention was to create a world where these twins could exist as boxers and it would not be that big a deal. Like they do have resistance and they are faced with some discrimination, but for them, it's not the crux their situation. That's not where their conflict comes from. And so I was kind of imagining a world where we were a little bit farther along in terms of our, compassion as a society, or our empathy, or just even the idea of, like difference or body difference wasn't so such a um, such a point of contention. Um, so that's the world that I just felt like I wanted to set it in. Um, but it wasn't really a conscious kind of decision. It was just, I was playing a little bit with like, slightly with this like magic realism idea. It's not magic realism, but the idea that we could take an absurd element like these boxers and just kind of open up a little bit of magic where we would just take that at face value, and we're not going to question it too much. We're not going to think too hard about the logistics of that.
Yeah.
Just open up a space for a little bit of of magic in it.
Yeah. And I love that. In fact, it's one of the things that got me super interested when I opened. I was like, oh, these are interesting characters. These are characters I wouldn't have thought of, or not characters that I see every day. And the beauty of these characters is their humanity, as I was saying earlier. And the thing that I find so striking about them is the internal battle that the twins fight to support each other and yet be their own selves. And so we've been talking a bit about this, but I found myself asking how you were able to connect to this struggle, and if you used any strategies to be able to connect to the humanity of these guys.
Um, I think I think it might have just been a function of time, because the story did take a long time from that thesis project to publication. It's like I graduated in 2013, so I had a lot of time with these characters. So I think it was just getting to really know them. Um, and my feeling was that there there wouldn't be any reason for them not to be able to express themselves in their full humanity. Like there would be no difference in these characters. Like I didn't want them to be caricatures um or like sort of I wanted to make them as three-dimensional as possible, because the premise itself, like when I tell my one sentence elevator pitch, the premise of this story is a little gimmicky, like this, these conjoined twin boxers, and they want different things. But I didn't want the story to actually feel like a gimmick. I wanted it to be really grounded and like very authentic, that this thing could really be happening, because if you could see it as a metaphor, I guess, for internal struggles we have or whatever. So I think for me it was like, I think the time, spending so much time with them, may have been what made them feel so real.
Yeah, I see that. I definitely see that. And it's very interesting that you're talking about how long it's taken for you to write this book, because I was curious about the publishing process and how easy or difficult it was for you to sell this idea. Can you walk me through the process? How much of the story is there to tell?
Oh, in terms of getting it to publication.
Yeah.
Um, well, it's when I first had the first draft of my thesis or whatever, I did shop it out, but it was not ready. Like it was too soon, it was too fresh. And so I only sent it to three places, and then in the time that it came back, I just kept working on it. I kept workshopping, and then I stopped working on it for a long time. And it was always sort of on the back of my mind. And I would workshop it, and I knew these edits that I wanted to, like, other elements to add to it, but I just wasn't really getting down to it. And then in 2023, in January, I just decided that was the year I was going to actually put in the work to try to do something with it, because I just knew if I didn't try again, I would really regret it. And I was intending to, spend a year on the edits that I wanted to do and then send it out to agents and publishers. And Invisible Publishing was like my number one on the list. I really wanted to submit to them because I just really, really liked the work they put out. And 2 days later, I saw a call for a contest that Invisible was putting on with York University in their book publishing program. And so I just got, like, I had a month before the deadline. And so I just got to work and I got the edits done and I submitted it and it happened to win the contest. So I don't know. I feel just really lucky. It was like timing, and it was just a matter of really just putting the work into it, I think. And then, yeah, that little bit of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you were very lucky. And I'm happy. I'm happy that you were lucky. But speaking about the work, in another interview, you talk about being a plotter.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, what's your recourse when the plot doesn't go as planned? Or maybe I should ask, does the plot always go as planned?
No, it doesn't. So I like to loosely plot, like we sort of talked about. I knew that last line, like I had that right from the beginning. So I kind of knew this long arc that I wanted to use, but I didn't know how to get there. And so I will generally plot like sort of big milestones that I think should happen along the way, but I try to leave room for the story to take a different course. Um, Also workshopping, like often that helps too, because maybe something isn't working. Um, but then also, like, I've found that like characters would come into the story that I didn't intend. Like there's a character of a tailor who wasn't in my original plan. And then when I sat down to write, he just kind of appeared. So I like to have a bit of a map, but I am very open to things changing. But there are certain things, like that ending I knew. I was like, and stick to that ending. And it's been a little divisive, just a little bit, but I was very committed to it. So yeah, so it is something about having a loose plan and then being open to what will emerge.
Yeah. I love that. And it leads me to my next question about the editing process. So when you talk about having that final line, at the back of your mind and sort of working around that line, did you encounter any challenges with, your editors as, you were going through all of those edits? Maybe someone said, oh, maybe this shouldn't be here, or maybe did anything come to push or upset that balance that you'd had?
Well, yeah, I had a lot of eyes on it. Like through the whole process, I had a lot of different editors that, the copywriter, proofreader, substantive editing. And so for the most part, it was a thumbs up. But then I did have one editor who was just like, can you think about this? Like, what are you talking about? What does this mean? But they're very good at Invisible. Like they are there to help raise questions to make your work stronger, but ultimately the author is sort of allowed to do as they see fit. So yeah, I appreciated like any pushback I got, even in workshops, when I was a student and stuff, because that really does help you start to find the line, because often I was really fixated on something, but then when it comes up a couple of times where it's like flagged, then you have to say, okay, this is only working for me.
Right.
No one else is on board with this. And so you start to learn when you have to, it kind of goes back to the individual and the community in a sense. Like when you hold the line for yourself and you decide, you decide what's going to happen, and when you have to be open to what your community is telling you or your editors, and to strike that balance so that the work can be better, and it is in service of creating something that
Right.
is better. Yeah.
Right. And so I want to take us back to that 12-year journey from first draft to print. And I know you give us a little bit of an idea of what you did, but I also want to ask, well, 10 years or however long, yeah, it was about 10 years, you didn't work on the book. What did you do in the waiting?
Um, I think I was just living and I was always thinking about it. Like it was always like like very close by, but I felt a little bit stuck. I felt I would work on it a little bit and I would workshop it and sort of, put some changes into it, but parts of me felt a little bit unsure of how to take it to the next level. Um, and so it kind of sat, and then I had my son, and so in that time, like that was definitely on the back burner. Um, but then it just got to the point where like the waiting was more painful, that whole thing where it was like, well, I
Yeah.
have to do something. I have to not be so scared to take this next step, or
Yeah.
or to really put that work in, that, and just, I guess maybe it's like trusting yourself, like trusting that like I knew what I wanted to sort of add to it to sort of bolster the story, and to just trust that I was on the right track.
And what have you learned from the waiting, if anything at all?
I actually have learned to take some of the pressure off, and that sometimes the story has its own gestation. Because in that time, I think, you know, when I was able to, after I was signed on with Invisible and working with the editors there, like I was able to really, I feel like I had characters who were a lot richer and a lot deeper than I did in my first, obviously in the first draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in the subsequent years, like I really felt like the amount of living that you do, it was just like adding a richness that could come out. So
Right.
I feel less pressured now to like put something out, or to to feel like something's taking too long. Like I feel
Mm.
like it's okay to take a long time.
Yeah.
Hopefully the next one though won't be as long, and like
Hopefully.
hopefully we can, do that faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Nadia, to close us off, I have two questions that I want to ask that are not related to the book, but are related to your writing journey and um, your writing path. And the first question I have for you is this: what is one thing that you absolutely must have as a writer?
Mm, one thing I must have as a writer. Um, hmm.
Is it a drink? Is it a place?
Oh, like as I'm writing.
Yeah.
I've actually I've actually realized that I don't need a specific place. I thought I would, but I actually prefer, like I wrote sort of this draft, the final
Yeah.
draft of it, like in my basement in this like kind of dark corner. So I actually think that maybe the deprivation is
Yeah.
necessary. Otherwise I'm too distracted maybe. Or it's just yeah, so I guess what it is, um it is having kind of a cocoon that I can go into. So I need that. I'm a writer who I cannot drink when I write, because then I don't want to write. I just want to go out and have fun. So that I've learned in my 20s, that is not part of my process. Um, I like to work in the morning if I can. Um, and I think actually the thing that I really need is I do need to be in a good mental headspace to work. Um, because even if it's like, if I'm writing about, like one of the characters is grieving, even if I'm kind of writing things that are dark or sad, I need to be in like a good place,
Yeah.
or I can't I can't do any writing. So
Yeah.
that's what I need.
Yeah.
Need a dark
Yeah.
room and good mental health. Yeah.
Okay, so final question. I have to think really hard about this one. what would you consider to be your writing superpower?
My writing superpower? I think empathy, I'm going to say. I think writing characters that I really feel something for, even if they're not major characters. I was finding that I was really enjoying writing this kind of big cast of characters, and even sort of walk-on characters I really enjoyed. And I have to kind of be careful because then I start telling too many stories, because I really like to get into like why a person is the way they are and what makes, you can, if they just come into a bar or something, but they've got a vibe that you can see. It's like getting into that a little bit. So I would say, yeah, maybe empathy.
Right. That is spot on because it shows in the work. You know how I talked about that internal struggle? I don't think you can get to that place mentally if you don't have that empathy to be able to understand these characters. Okay, so I said that was my final question, but this actually is my final question. So at the end of the show, there's a line that I say, until next time, stay on the journey of your art. So my last question to you is, what is it that helps you to stay on the journey of your art?
Oh, I think it's a feeling of momentum right now, and a feeling of I just really love to create things. And those years when I'm not creating or not making anything, like all of the things I like to do and like sewing and knitting and all these things, I feel like I'm not myself if I'm not doing something creative. And so I don't want to waste any more time. I just want to keep with this momentum and not be in a place of where I am regretting the time that's gone by. So I don't know if that's fear. Is that being motivated by fear?
No,
I don't know.
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. I think it's an awareness of how short life is, and how every moment has to count.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you live to be 100, there's so many things that you can do with your art. So I don't think it's fair. I
Yeah.
like that
Okay.
answer.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting with me about your book.
Oh, thank you so much.
Unfortunately, the postal service is on a strike, so I can't show your book in front of the camera as I usually do. But if you want to get Nadia's book, the Pugilist, it's not the Pugilist, and the Sailor, you can look in the show notes or the description box for the links to that. Thank you, Nadia.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. On the next episode, I'll be chatting with another inspiring artist. But before then, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you think about this show and this episode. Feel free to drop me a note here or send me a DM on Instagram at Journey of the Art Blood. Finally, please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or follow and rate the show if you're listening elsewhere. Help me connect with other artists who need a dose of inspiration today. Until next time, stay on the journey of your art.